Business with Stephen. I think he started every bulletin with this story this week. The troubled Chinese property developer Evergrande facing a big debt deadline today, Stephen.
It's the question that struck fear into global markets all this week. How will cash-strapped Evergrande pay the interest due on its debts today? There are two separate payments that are owed today, one worth around $35 million on an onshore China-focused bond. The company says it has reached a deal to resolve that, although we don't know how much they've agreed to pay. There's still no word though about the more than $80 million the firm owes on an offshore or international bond. Evergrande has a 30-day grace period to work out some sort of deals with its creditors on that. But there are more deadlines to come as well. Another payment due next week and over $600 million owed before the end of this year. The worries about Evergrande's finances and whether or not it may default on its debts has caused waves across Asian bond markets. It's also caused ripples in other parts of the world. Let's hear what the head of the US Federal Reserve had to say about it.
The Evergrande situation, seems very particular to China, which has very high debt for an emerging market economy. There's not a lot of direct United States exposure. The big Chinese banks are not tremendously exposed, but that you would worry that it would affect global financial conditions through confidence channels and that kind of thing.
Jerome Powell there, and this is the question I keep asking you as a follow-up to all of that. How are the share markets reacting to it, Stephen?
Evergrande shares back open today and getting a huge boost from that relief among investors that they have at least resolved one of their payment deadlines. At the start of trading in Hong Kong today, Evergrande shares jumped by the most ever since 2009. At the moment, they're up around 18% in Hong Kong. On the markets more broadly, investors reacting to news the Chinese central bank has injected the equivalent of $17 billion in liquidity into the market today. That's the fourth day it's been adding cash to the markets in an effort to avoid any panic over Evergrande's debt problems. European shares also trading up at the start of trading today. Mining company stocks among those getting a boost. That's linked to the Evergrande story. London, Paris and Frankfurt all up, as you can see there.
Let's take you to Spain for this next story. Consumers there are really seeing the worst effects of the rising price of gas.
It's an issue affecting countries across Europe, but Spain in particular has seen massive price hikes in gas and electricity in recent months. Despite emergency measures taken by the government, some people have seen their bills double and are having to make difficult choices as a result. Nicholas Rushworth has the story.
The surge in electricity prices is hitting Spaniards on lower incomes especially hard, including José Luis Hagas in Barcelona. He had a shock last month with a bill that was double the usual amount. He's 68, retired, and lives on a small pension.
The extra €25 I had to pay is the equivalent of a week's shopping at the supermarket. So do I have to stop shopping to pay the electricity? Something's not right.
Spain's electricity bills have risen by almost 35% over the last year. The Socialist Prime Minister, Pedro Sánchez, is vowing to rein the costs in. He promised earlier this month that when 2021 is over, consumers will have paid the same for electricity as they did in 2018. To do that, his government has introduced a series of emergency measures, including lowering VAT on electricity bills, a lower tax rate on electric power generation, and the introduction of a temporary windfall tax on energy companies. Those companies condemn the measures, targeting them as arbitrary and rushed. Other businesses, however, are saying that the extra cost is just too great.
If a customer asks for a toasted cheese sandwich, I say I've run out because it's not worth plugging the machine in. The next step is closing and laying off the 2 employees.
Analysts say with Spain's electricity price pegged to the natural gas price, the scope for easing the burden for consumers remains limited. In one other measure, the government says people who cannot afford to pay will not have their electricity cut off.
Rising gas prices are the centre of this electricity price hike story. We've been discussing the causes of this crisis and how long it might last in our weekly business show, People in Profit. You can see that on air today at 16:45 Paris time.
It's a good show as well. Don't miss it. Finally, from Stephen, the video game Fortnite won't be returning to Apple's download store anytime soon.
The CEO of Epic Games, just the company behind Fortnite, says the game has been blacklisted until all court appeals in their legal dispute with Apple have been completed. That process could take years. Apple and Epic have been locked in a legal dispute since last year when the game maker tried to get around the 30% commission that Apple takes on in-app purchases. Earlier this month, a judge struck down some of the iPhone maker's rules to allow for other forms of payment, but the appeals process has only just begun. It'll be a long time before you can download Fortnite on your phone. I know that's a huge concern.
It is. I'm very, very concerned about it, Stephen. If you could do some more investigating for us, that would be great. Stephen with business on France 24.